Hi, I'm Bobby's mother. So, Bobby's the light of my life, but when other people see him, they don't treat me like, wow, she's got a great son. Look at that. They treat me three different ways. Um, if they're fairly kind people, they treat me like maybe I drew the short stick when it comes to parenting, and I got the defective child, and they feel sorry for me, and they're apologetic towards me and try to be empathetic. But I don't really like that because Bobby's awesome, and when they feel bad for him and feel bad for me for having to be his mom, it kind of, I don't know, undermines his awesomeness. Um, and they're really missing out on seeing a great kid because all they see is his difficulties, and they see that it's worked for me. Other parents, or maybe not even parents, people at the grocery store, wherever, school employees for sure, um, give me like a judgment look, like Bobby acts the way he does, or he has tantrums, he misbehaves, because I allow it, because of bad parenting, because we have a bad home life, and they like try to figure out what's going on home that makes it so bad. And this is just massively ignorant, and it really makes me frustrated. And I understand why. I mean, a person doesn't want to think that this could happen to them, that they would have a hard time with their child, that their child would ever do this, and they like to think that they're in control of that. So to think that maybe something might happen to your child that you can't control, your own child's behavior, that's not something they can think about. That's not something they understand to be true. So one thing I really hate about that is that Bobby's going to have a hard time. He's going to have a hard time because of his autism, getting along with people, having a job, getting through school. But on top of that, when people bring ignorance like that to it, it makes it a doubly hard time now. Now you're going to blame my child for their own disability that's making things hard. So that's seems exceedingly cruel. It'd be like if you saw someone in a wheelchair and blamed them for being in the wheelchair, or if you saw a blind person and then blamed them for being blind and said it was because it was bad parenting, or because they were lazy or not motivated, and that they would have some control over it. So it's taking a person's disability and blaming it on them, and it's so much more cruel. And this happens at school a lot. So recently, a couple of people have referred to me as being a saint. I also don't like this, even though it sounds like it's a positive thing. It's very kind of them to say something kind to me, but it's basically going back to the first thing I don't like, where people treat me like they're sorry for me, or that, they empathize or sympathize with me for being Bobby's mother. And I don't like that because, again, that's assuming that Bobby's not awesome, and he's phenomenal. He's an awesome kid. The other thing is, I feel like a saint would be somebody who chooses to do good for others. And being Bobby's mom is not something I choose. I love being Bobby's mom, but being a mother to a child with autism is not something I choose, and I would give up in a second. But not only that, Bobby would give it up in a second. We're not choosing this. So I don't feel like it's appropriate to call me a saint. I mean, I just survive, and it's not me helping somebody just because I want to. It's because Bobby's awesome and deserves it, and I love him, and this is his disability, and this is what we deal with. It'd be like saying you're a saint for having a child with cancer, or you're a saint for having a child who's blind, or you're a saint for having a child who's in a wheelchair. I didn't give him autism so that I could take care of him. One thing I would love people to know and understand, and some people do, but they discount it because of the behavior that goes with it, is that Bobby is super smart. He's super smart, and he's really funny, and he's very likable, but it's just really with specific topics. If you want to talk about cell phone technology all the time, he would blow you out of the water. He'd be able to tell you jokes about it. He'd be able to tell you everything about it. He'd be a great best friend. If he went to a school where he was allowed to talk about cell phone technology most of the day, he would be the top student. In fact, if he went to a school where the teachers could just watch him grow in his own areas that he likes, and his growth was celebrated, or his by his own merit and growing in his own ways, he would be a star pupil. The problem is that schools are set up to teach children very specific things in very specific orders and using very specific methods. And Bobby is not good at doing things in specific orders or with specific methods and not all specific things. So because he can't put those three things together, he's the bad kid, unfortunately. If the school could meet him a little bit more on his own comfort level, be great. If the school could teach things on his in his order that he wants to do, it'd be great. You know, he's terrible at algebra type math, but geometry type math, not so much. But he will never take geometry because he will never pass algebra, and that's not fair. That's not fair at all. He could be a rock star in geometry, maybe. We'll never know. I understand that Bobby is responsible for his actions, and I accept that. But if the school had any idea of truly what it means to be him, what it means to have the same sensory issues he has, I feel like they would have to be held responsible for his disruptive behavior just as much as he is. If they knew what he was going through, if they truly understood it, it wouldn't be bad. It would be, oh, we need to change his setting, or they would see it coming. I think in many ways the school sets him up to fail because of the way things are taught and because of the setting he's in. And when he gets in trouble, he's not just getting in trouble, but his self-esteem is lowering. And the other kids are thinking less of him. And the other kids are going to grow up to be employers. And they're going to be less likely to hire somebody on the spectrum because they'll remember bad Bobby. When he was in kindergarten, every night he would tell me, Mom, I want to be the good kid tomorrow. Tomorrow I want to be the good kid. And we'd talk. And I'd say, okay, well, what's a good kid look like? And how does a good kid act? And how do you think you could do to be a good kid? What are the things you could do to be a good kid? And we come up with a plan. And then he could never do it. And so now we've been doing this for 7 or 8 years, for 180 days a school year. And he knows every morning when he wakes up that he wants to be the good kid. And he's even got a plan to try to be the good kid. But he's not going to be the good kid. In fact, he's probably going to be labeled the bad kid that day. And if he's not, then it's just one day he survived without being the bad kid. I wish teachers knew how hard he was trying to be the good kid. He deserves some recognition for trying so hard to be the good kid. They have no idea what they do to him. And they're not trying to, and the school's not trying to, and the sensory issues aren't trying to. But when he is at school and he's having a temper tantrum, that is him being good. When he comes home, he can explode and have tantrums. I mean, what's it do to a person's self-esteem to have them be the bad kid 180 days a year for years and years and years on end? Does that damage him forever? Will he never be able to recover from what he's going through right now? It terrifies me. And things are worse now that he's in junior high. He's supposed to be in charge of some of his homework, and he's supposed to be able to work more independently. And every night I send him to bed at an early bedtime, and I make sure he gets as much sleep as he can possibly get. And I make sure he eats a good breakfast. And then I give him a really harsh medication to help him concentrate all day. The medication that's so harsh that if he had a urine test, he would test positive for methamphetamines. And he goes to school for 7.5 hours. And in that 7.5 hours, he does his absolute best to control himself and also try to learn something. But his executive functioning skills are not the same as everybody else's. He's not going to remember to put his name on his paper. He's not going to remember to do his homework. But what I get home then is a kid who's basically like a bottle of soda that slowly throughout the day has been shaken up over and over and over again. And when he gets home, that lid bursts off and he explodes all over the place. And he is loving and awesome and sweet, but he's got to let it out. So he can rage, he can have temper tantrums, he can destroy the house in seconds. Nothing we can do can help him. Eventually, he comes out of it, and he apologizes, and he feels so guilty. So he has to feel guilty for having his own disability, which is terrible. And then he's exhausted, and we're exhausted because we've been dealing with the cleaning up the mess and trying to keep him calm and trying to help him through it. And then I look in his backpack and I see a note from the teacher that says, or I read my email and I see a note that says, hey, we've been working all week on a paper. Bobby hasn't been working during that time and it's due tomorrow. So if he wants to get credit, you need to make sure he gets it done tonight. He's tired. His medication is gone. I send him to school with a full breakfast, a good night's sleep, and properly medicated. And after 7.5 hours, I get back a raging child that's exhausted. And now he's supposed to do that work? Why wasn't it done at school? He's got an aide, but that aide's busy with other students too. And a certain age, teachers and aides just say, well, if the student's not going to do it, then they're just going to have to learn by failing that they need to, which doesn't make any sense. And they hear, we can take a horse to water, but we can't make it drink. Well, for me to have him write that paper, I have to do it unmedicated when he's exhausted, and I have to sit with him and every word I say, now write the next word, and write the next word, and write the next word. This should be done in the school, not at home, when he doesn't have his supports in place, when he doesn't have his medication, and he's exhausted. That needs to be done at school, and the school needs to step in for that. Otherwise, they just need to tell me we can't teach your son. It's not legal for them to do that, but it seems like a giant lie for me to send him there to school, and have him sent back not taught, and in a state of mind where he's really not capable of being taught, and then being told that he's going to fail if he can't figure it out. He deserves the best, and he deserves to be taken care of. He's amazing. He's just as amazing as every other kid there. In fact, sometimes more so if you get to really know him and really see what he can do. I can guarantee he's trying as hard as any child there, probably 2 times, 3 times as hard. And I can guarantee that at home, we're doing all the right things. But we're out of money, and we're out of time, and there's nothing more we can do. I really need teachers to get educated and how to help kids with ADHD, sensory processing disorders, tics, anything that makes it look like they're having a hard time. And if you just remember one thing about my child, if he's giving you a hard time, it's because he's having a hard time. And he is trying his very best to be the good kid right now, then sometimes you can see through the fit to see him trying. And that's what I need teachers to do.